Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers and occasionally an amazing mother, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own craft. I'm your guide, Ned, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 20th year of marriage. So, yep, I'm in the thick of it, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. I am very excited for you to meet today's guest, my new friend, Cynthia Monteleone. She is incredible. She is a world champion in the 400-meter race, a mom of 3, and an author and a metabolic analytics practitioner. When winning the gold, check this out, dudes, she ran faster at age 43 than she did as a Division I collegiate track athlete. Wow, zero excuses, dudes. She has stood up for women in sports, and I came across her as our own family now has had firsthand experience with our teenage daughter racing against a transgender boy. When the situation first arose, I wanted to do something, to speak up, to say something, but I didn't know how, I didn't know what to do. So when I saw Cynthia share and teach on her Instagram, I reached out and said, would you please have a conversation with me? I think more dads need to be engaged and aware. So I was so grateful to have a conversation with her on this platform to get us fathers thinking about how to have conversations with our daughters, how to be a part of their own feelings around this and engage in the bigger conversation to ensure that women's sports exist for our girls in future generations. I learned so much from Cynthia, and I'm grateful to have had her on the show today. Enjoy. My intention is that I want to talk about the transgender issue so that dads step into what can they do when this situation arises? Because I'm in the stands, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Really, am I supposed to pull my kid out? So that's item number one. Okay. If you were thinking about primarily men listening to this podcast, fathers, is there any other thing that you're like, oh, well, we should definitely talk about X, Y, or Z?
Whatever, we can just flow, I think. That's better, right? Yeah, the lighting is better.
Totally. Is there any other topics that you feel like are really important to you when it comes to speaking up for women, especially as a dad thinking about his daughters?
Oh my gosh. No, I'm sure that you cover most of it. So I think we can just flow about it. Gosh, I wish my husband was here too, because he is we can talk about it, but he's been a wrestling coach for 25 years.
Okay. How many years you been married?
We've been married for, it's been 12 years, something like that.
And then you have 3 kids?
Yes.
How old are your kids?
My daughter is from my previous marriage.
Okay.
And I noticed that you're friends with my friend Matt.
Are you friends with Matt? That's crazy. How do you know Matt?
He had me on his podcast a couple of years ago because I'm a world champion. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. And I'm a metabolic practitioner. We can talk about that too, because people just find that interesting.
Yes, which is super freaking cool because I have recently gone, I've always been into fitness. Long story short, went through a huge transformation before I turned 40. Now I have an online program we've launched for Christian businessmen to get in shape. And I've been getting certifications in nutrition and fitness the last year.
Feel free to pick my brain about metabolics because that's what I do, but we can get into it.
Well, I'm about to. Well, so after this call, I'm going to set up an appointment for you, me and Violet. We'd like to hire you to do training with her. We want to get her to a D1 school. So we have a guy who wants to invest in her training. And so... Hey. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm when I heard you say Big Island and then I was just on the MAM site, dude, this is exactly what we need.
Oh yeah. So you see what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Okay. Cynthia Monteleone. Is that the right way to say it?
It's Monteleone. is the
Monty
Italian Monteleone. So when I was in Italy
Monteleone.
last year, it was, oh my gosh, all the Italians were, oh, Miss Monteleone, Miss
Yeah.
Monteleone. And my husband pronounces it Monteleone a lot of times, or Monteleone. And just, I guess, had the Californiaized version because his grandfather's from California, although his family came over from Italy. And so now ever since I've been in Italy, I have to be Monteleone because
I love
it
it.
just seems proper. And it translates to Lion of the Mountain, not necessarily
Whoa.
lion, because that's a different word in Italian, but Lion of the Mountain. And I thought, how fitting. This is totally me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And then I know you are a world champion at the 400. What year was that?
Yeah. So my story, a short version of my story is I ran Division I track at University of North Carolina, Wilmington, great school, and I did not run for 20 years, something like that. I turned 40, and I had just had my third child, Atlas, and I had just finished breastfeeding him, and it was time to do some sort of exercise. And because it's really important that women don't rush into losing weight, because when they actually lose body fat when they're breastfeeding, the toxins go into the breast milk. So it's very important that I think celebrities sometimes push losing weight too fast. And it's really important that they don't do that they really just take their time and let nature take its course, because you're there to nurture your baby and feed your baby. So I was done with my third child with that. And so my daughter was 11 at the time. She said to me, Mom, I want to run track in college like you did. And I said, okay, well, let's get out on the track and do a 400 and see what's going on. She was like 11, and we ran out there. Man, we just thought we were just killing it, and crawled across the finish line in a whopping 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is not very fast.
Yeah.
And we were dead, let me tell you. So that's where my journey started at age 40. And I had a friend who coaches, and he said, you know what, will you let me coach you? I think you can be world champion. And I thought, yeah, right, because I'm running super slow. And he said, no, I think you can. I said, well, if you think I can, then I think I can. So here we went on our journey. My daughter and I trained together along with him. And 3 years later, I became world champion. I ran faster than I did as a D1 athlete in college.
Yes.
And I believe this is due to my metabolics. We can get into that in a little bit. I'm a certified metabolic practitioner. So I basically tell people, especially Olympians, professional athletes, what to eat and what supplements to take for, really for their health first. But if you're well, then your performance reflects that. So I believe that I lowered my biological age by doing all these metabolic hacks, and I was even faster than I did in college. And I'm still running fast. I'm 48 now. My daughter just finished her first year. She chose my alma mater, UNC, to run track at. She does hurdles. And so, yeah, it was really special, and we both achieved our goals.
That's incredible.
So that's my story of how I started to become involved in Team USA track and field. So, so I've been running world championship meets since 2018. And my last I actually have been boycotting the 400 at world championships, which we'll talk about. But so my last world championship 400 was 2019 when I won. So, and then I did dabble over 2020 over COVID. I ran a couple of 400s in Arizona and other places that still remained open and maskless, Florida. But I haven't really raced a competitive world championship 400 because they have been allowing male athletes to compete in the female category. And I've just chosen not to participate in that. I started learning multi-events the past couple of years, and it's been so much fun. I always say it's never too late to learn new things, and it's really great for your brain neuroplasticity to learn new things, particularly when there's risk involved, because your dopamine is so high when there's risk involved. So, of course, I've chosen the decathlon, which has pole vault. So, what could be scarier to a new person than pole vault? Although I have no fear going into it. I actually come to embrace it and love it. But yeah, so that's a little bit of basically where I'm at and what I've been doing. I will run the 400 again this coming March. We have the World Championships in Gainesville, Florida, indoor. This is indoor track. And this is the first time it's been in the USA in decades.
Wow.
For master's track. So I will be running the 400 and 200 at that meet. So I'll be back to training for that. Assuming that World Athletics maintains their policy, which they came out with last March, which is to not allow male-bodied athletes into the female category.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So, and that's what leads us here today. So, Cynthia, thank you so much for coming on Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. I have 4 daughters and a son. And, this is one of those things that you hear in the news, you hear kind of outside your world, maybe. The reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is I really want dads to start to think about how are we advocating for our daughters? How are we setting up for future success for our granddaughters and grandkids and just future generations? And I think it's really easy for us to put our head in the sand or go like, this isn't an issue for me. But we will find ourselves in the stands of a situation, and I'll just share my own story of being at an athletic event for our high school, middle school girls that are now having to race against boys who have decided to be, transgender and a girl, which is all fine. And that's not what here I'm to talk about is their decision, but our decisions have impact on people around us. And so I'll just share my story. So this year, I have 4 daughters. They're all athletes. And my daughter, Violet, is doing very well in track. She's a sophomore. And this year, she has had to race against a boy who's decided that he's a girl, which, again, that's not my point of this conversation. But as I sat in the stands, I go, what do I even think? How do I feel? How does my daughter feel? And I would even argue, my daughter's my one daughter who goes to public school. She is the one who, if I sent her to Christian school, she'd have a tough time there because she has such an open mind. And so sitting with her and her frustration of, Dad, I work so hard. And I see these girls, hours and hours. She's like, Dad, I work so hard. And my friends work so hard. And now I have friends who should be at states, or I have friends who should be on the podium, and they're not. And she says, I have all the love in the world for this particular human being who's chosen this path, but they have to realize like their choices are having massive impact on us. And there's needs to be some lines here. So when I heard you on Instagram share the statistics, and maybe I think we should start with that, because that's just really, it's like blatantly obvious, the impact. So anyways, as we talk about this, I'm really taking it from a father's perspective of, I want us dads to love and support our daughters well and know what to do and how to do it. And so, yeah, what maybe share from your perspective, the situation that kind of brought us together, and then we can just rap about it from there.
Yeah, sure. So in 2018, I told you I've been doing world championship meets since 2018.
Yeah.
I discovered that I had, like any, athlete, I looked up my competition, and I discovered that in my 400 meter race, in my 400 and 200 meter races, I had my 400, I had a lady from Africa who was convicted of doping, was just coming off a doping sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw in my 200 race, I had a male athlete from Colombia who had just started identifying as female, and I started asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't say, oh, this is wrong, this is whatever, like you said, like this is, I think it's fine to just say, yeah, we have love for everyone, or you can make your own decision, but they have impacts. But we can also be honest with ourselves and trust our instincts. And
Mm-hmm.
we know, especially as females and your audience as dads, your instinct tells you this is not okay. This is not right. We know this is nature. So I started asking questions, and at first USA Track and Field officials, not officials, but management were like, what? This is not okay, and this and that. But by the time I got to the world meet, like a month or 2 later, they had changed their tune. They were like being quiet, not saying anything.
Yeah.
They were told to basically go along with whatever was happening and not to cause problems. And so I really want your audience to know today that that is not acceptable. We are in America. It's a free country. We can speak up however we want, and we can ask questions. So if you don't want to say, I have a problem with this, you can at least ask, what is the policy? And then if you so choose, you can say, I don't agree with this policy. This is always my call to action is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, show me where it's written that this is okay.
Right.
And if it is written, who wrote it?
Mm-hmm.
And let's get that changed. Is it the, state of Hawaii Congress? Who is it? Who's making these rules? In this case with Violet, it's state of Hawaii Department of Education, who's they're basically overseeing HHSAA, which is the Hawaii State School Athletic Association. HHSAA doesn't want to have anything to do with it, so they have not created their own policy. Big Island, I'm told, did not create a policy. Maui had a policy. I don't know if they still do. So basically, they're all kicking it to the other person. They're sweeping it under the rug. And at the end of the day, Department of Education is the one who's taking the blame. And so I filed a civil rights complaint against the Department of Education because after I ended up racing this individual from Columbia in 2018, a year and a half later, my daughter had to race her very first freshman year high school race against a boy from Kamehameha who had just moved from the boys volleyball team to the girls volleyball team, and was trying out track for the first, maybe he practiced 2 weeks, and he just flew past everybody. And so I can get to the end of that story in a minute, but so it not only happened to me, but it happened to my daughter.
Wow.
And at the time, the New York Times was reporting things like, oh, this is never happening. There are hardly any transgender athletes and this and that. And I'm like, what? It happened to me and my daughter. And one psychiatrist told me, this was back when I was still on Facebook. I've been off Facebook for years, but this woman said to me, oh, you're just mad because you lost. And I said, well, I'm sorry you didn't get the memo, but actually I didn't lose. So I beat my competitor, but that wasn't the point.
Right.
My competitor was 6'3", okay, and came back and decided to try hurdles and beat my teammate at the next World Indoor Championships and got a silver medal. My teammate got bronze, should have gotten silver.
Yeah, because hang on 1 second. On the hurdles, aren't the girls lower than the men's?
Yes, they're the lowest. For masters, they're the lowest they can be.
Come on.
Yeah. And so, so what you said was accurate. I coached Lahaina Luna up until last year when we had to move because of the fire. And, I see how hard my young girls work. I myself run, and I know how hard you have to practice just to get a 1/10 of a second. And so the statistics are, I ended up moving to the Big Island. I was invited to go watch the Big Island Championships a couple weeks ago. So when I was watching, I was told this, this individual is male and, identifying as female. There's actually, 2 or 3 of them on the same team. It turns out there's 2. The other one is just feminine gay, I guess, for the boys. So I'm like, oh, wow, well, I have an issue with this because this is not fair. And I know this is not fair because this happened to me and I know how I felt. This happened to my daughter and I know how she felt. This happened to the girls on my Lahaina Luna team who also had to race that individual. I had one girl say, Coach Cynthia, I'm just going to quit because I've worked for 4 years to win MIL championships in the 400. And, either my daughter's a freshman, she felt like, okay, my daughter's a fair competition, And this girl was running faster than my daughter at the time. Of course, my daughter's just starting. This girl's a senior. She said, this is my dream to win MIL. And now it's obvious that I'm not going to win. So she said she just wanted to quit. And I said, this could be your year. You could go to States and be seen and go to college on scholarship. Wouldn't you?
Yes.
And she said, I would love to run in college, but what's the point? If I get to college, they're just going to allow this in college too. And she was right. Why? Because college coaches are paid to win. And if they don't win, they're dropped from the staff. So what we're seeing is a trend of college coaches, especially the lower divisions of NCAA, Division II, Division III. They are absolutely embracing this. And unfortunately, here in the Big Island, the school is KL. I'm told, and I've seen the coaches celebrate this. They're enjoying the points, which is absolutely abhorrent to me. Instead of upholding the integrity of female sports, they're celebrating winning the points. And this is unacceptable. So, of course, I raised my voice and I started asking everyone, the officials, the head of Big Island officials, what's the policy? He said, I don't think we have a policy. I'm going to check. But no one had even asked this. It's
Yeah.
been a month now that this individual has been racing and pole vaulting, and no one's even asked why. Maybe because they weren't doing so well. They weren't doing as well as would create a podium position, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, being that they're male, this particular individual who did make it to states went from number 72 in the state as a female to number 19 in the state, dropping over 1 second, or about 1 second in the 200, which is a lot if you don't know the 200 meters.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, especially when it goes from 27 to 26. So this person dropped from number 72 in the state to number 19 in 1 week's time. This is not hard work. I'm sorry. Like, they can claim they work hard all they want, but the data shows that this is not from hard work. This is not possible, really, for a female to do. It could happen if, I don't know, they have untapped raw potential and they're kind of mixed, but generally in high school sports, this doesn't happen. What number would that, at number 19, what number would that person be as a male? Number 565 as a male.
In the state.
65 in the state out of about 1,000. So quite literally, a mediocre male showing up and taking a podium position and a state qualifying position from females. And so, of course, I had to speak up. I mean, Instagram video. I reached out to all of the officials I could possibly do, the head of BIIF, the representative for HHSA from BIF, which, by the way, the Big Island representative is the principal for this transgender individual school. Which
seems like a conflict of interest right there.
Conflict of interest for sure. This person got up on the news and said that no one has complained after I had sent several emails. So not only is he, just pretending and sweeping it under the rug, but he's flat out lying to cover himself. But anyway, I'm passionate about it because I know how psychologically detrimental this is to our young females. And as dads, I'm sure you're very interested in raising strong females who, who, yes, can take care of themselves, but also who are not told, when we're telling them hard work pays off, which are great lessons that dads and moms can tell them, and coaches. And then someone comes in who doesn't have to work as hard and just starts sweeping up the prizes, then they look to us like, okay, adults, what did you just teach me? This lesson has just fallen apart. Why is it okay? Why are you allowing this and saying it's okay for them to do this when we have to work so hard? So I think, I said in my video, this is not the fault of the individual, the male who's identifying as female. This is, if they want to dress however they want, they can. This is America. It's a free country. They can wear flowers in their hair or bows in their hair or whatever they want to do. But what they can't do is they can't take the position of our females in sports, especially. We cannot let them take female spaces that are reserved for females. We cannot allow this because then the integrity of female sports falls apart. So this is why I'm such an advocate for speaking up for this.
Yeah. So as I thought about us kind of coming together today, I wrote down a few things that I wanted to say to the fathers and then have you give your feedback on it as well. Before I say the four things, one of the questions, because I did a bunch of research on Title IX and couple other websites, just try to get some statistics around our girls and their sports and how are we advocating for them. And this question came into my mind, and I'll say, I love sports. Sports are great. I do think that we're a little crazy in America about our teen sports already. It's kind of like our religion with our kids. And so if you take a step back, why are you even having your kids in sports? And I'm not asking that question to question whether you should, but your motivation. And it's like, I wrote down 5 things. It's like, this should be fun for them. This should be learning teamwork. This should be learning winning and losing. This should be competition. And then, like you spoke on, this is an opportunity that if a kid does thrive and wants to dedicate a bunch of time, like Violet is not home most nights because she's training. She's giving up a big portion of her freedom to train. And that's an opportunity for college, right? Like she, as a sophomore
because
makes
that's her dream.
because that's her dream. Exactly. And it's like, she pays attention to every post she does online and what song she uses and all these things, you know, as a teenager to support getting into college. So dads, why do you have your kids in sports? And that's why I think, especially middle school, high school, I get that life isn't fair. I get that. And that, you know, like, you could have your own opinion on this, but say like women's professional softball versus men's professional baseball, why there might be one makes more money than the other. That's not what this conversation is about. You're talking about your middle school and high school daughter should have the exact same opportunities. And even Title IX, reading that, like, our daughters don't necessarily still have the same funding for their fields, funding for their athletics. It's like, this is already an issue. And now we're going to let a boy come and take over for the work our daughters are doing, making them say, I don't want to run the 400 as a senior. Like, it's not worth it. It's like, we're going backwards. And so I could get, I got to be careful.
No, you're right. We are, it's true. And a lot of times people will comment like, where are the feminists at and this and that. And I can tell you that those feminists who, did their bra burning or whatever. Like, I was at an event for Patsy Mink for the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and it was all Democrat women. This is not a political issue, but we'll just say that, obviously, it back in the day, this tended to be a Democratic thing, right? Feminism.
Right.
And so all these older generation, 67-year-old Democratic women celebrating Title IX that they worked so hard for. And I got up and I asked Patsy Mink's daughter, who is really left, hey, what about myself and my daughter competing against men in sports? Man, she could not answer. She did not want to say the one thing, but she did say, I think that they should be able to, compete within their gender identity. And all these women looked at each other and they were all shocked. They couldn't believe that she was saying this because that's not what they fought for. They know what they fought for, and it wasn't this. So this is not a political issue because all of the Democrat women I know do not agree with males being in sports. One woman said, I wanted to run cross country back in the 70s. I wanted to run cross country running, but I couldn't because they told me my uterus would fall out. Can you believe this?
That's crazy.
My other friend was one of the first women in women's cycling. And guess what? They were training for the Olympics. They just finally allowed women's cycling in the Olympics in the 80s. And they told them that they couldn't cycle on their periods, that they weren't allowed to because it was dangerous. And she said, can you imagine all of us if we had listened to that rule? Of course, they would just lie. She said, because if we had listened to that rule, then they would get no practice done. So I think that people forget that this is how it was. And like you said, it still is because we still have to, at Lahaina Luna, we had a Title IX violation a few years ago because the men's football team was taking up all the locker rooms and the girls had no places. So we had 2 men's locker rooms, JV and varsity, and no women's. So we are still fighting for locker rooms and practice playing fields and equal sports at colleges. We are still fighting for that.
Yeah, it's so weird because you're right. I like how you said this isn't a political issue, yet we jump on our political side, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever. And it's like, hang on a second. Hang on. Let's just put ourselves in the shoes of like a 15-year-old girl who just wants to go show up and play a game with her friends. Like, I don't want to say this because I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to say this because people are going to judge me. Like, and I mean, that's how I feel sometimes. It's like, what can I say that doesn't make me look like a hater? I'm not trying to hate on anybody, but are we uplifting our girls? And it's like the fact that you women still have to fight for your right to just have fair track meet is not right. And I think that us men need to step up and be a part of things. And it doesn't mean whatever feminist means to you, whatever Democrat, whatever Republican, like that's all noise at a certain level.
Drop the labels.
Yeah, exactly.
Drop your instinct. What feels right?
Yes. What is right? What is common sense? Okay, so a couple things I want to say to dads, and I'd love to get your opinion to speak to dads as well, because I know your husband's a wrestling coach. Like, he's in the game. He understands this stuff. Dads, I grew up with a brother, and so we'd say, like, you throw like a girl or you're a girl or whatever. Now I have 4 daughters and a son. All that language is out of my mouth. Like, I never in my life would say anything like that because I understand the implications. So dads, pay attention to the words that you use with your girls. As fathers, how are you supporting your daughters, right? Like, how are you supporting them? How are you engaged? Are you talking to them about this stuff? How do they feel about it? Don't make it about you or your your political party. I don't care about that. I want you to tune into your daughter and how she feels. You're going to say something, Cynthia, about that.
No, I've been through it not only myself, but with my daughter. So I understand that perspective. And it pains the parent to see the daughter, hurting because they worked so hard and then they have to show up and have an unfair competition, whether they win or not, right? Because eventually there's going to be a male that takes all the spots and all the records. It's already happening, at the elite level. They've just gotten rid of it. So, obviously the rest of the policies need to catch up. They're going in the opposite direction with the current administration, which unfortunately has politicized this issue when it's just common sense in biology.
Right.
How are you supporting your daughters? And that is asking them how they feel about it.
Right.
And allowing them space to speak up within the home. And then, I really encourage not placing value in the opinions of others. Are you really going to value someone who calls you a hater or a bigot because you're speaking the truth? Are you going to value their opinion more than your own opinion of yourself? If you're a good person, you know you're a good person. If you know that you're standing up for your daughter by asking these questions, then you should stand up for your daughter. You should ask the questions. Don't worry about what people are saying because there is no value in their opinion. There's only value in the opinion that you have of yourself as a parent standing up for your daughter, if that's what they so choose. My daughter was like, I don't talk about it too much amongst my peers, but if they do say things like, I thought, like, her peers thought if they take estrogen, if the male takes estrogen, then they become female. Like, they just were clueless. Like, this is, as adults, we might understand that this is not the reality, that if you take estrogen, it doesn't make you a female. It feminizes you, but it doesn't make you a female. So she would correct them and not worry about that. But otherwise, she really didn't want to say too much about it at school. But, when she was on all kinds of interviews about it. She was on Tucker Carlson. She was on Fox News, anyone who would listen, because she was passionate about it not happening to other girls. She didn't want it to happen to other girls. And unfortunately, here we are, 2024, and it's still happening in the state of Hawaii. So,
and it's happening other places too. Like, is about half the states allow this, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I have a few women's groups that I work with. So they are true feminists. Icons Women, Independent Women's Forum, Concerned Women for America. Alliance for Defending Freedom is a great legal group that's covering this. And they've already got 3 lawsuits against the Biden administration, Title IX rewrite that they're trying to do. So they have an extensive list of everyone. And I think there's probably at least 30 individuals on the list for the 2024 season in America that they know of.
Wow.
And there's one individual competing this weekend in Oregon that ran a 56.1 400 last week. So that would have won states in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
So if that person were competing here. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like now, my daughter is going to go to, and I don't know how every organization is, but they're going to the Junior Olympics this summer, and she's going to the Nike Invitational this summer. And that's like, she's putting in the work daily. Like, she's paying attention to what she eats daily, just because she wants to do well here. And so men, the third thing for fathers is like, how do we fight for the purpose of our kids, especially our girls playing sports? And what are some things that dads could do, right? Because I think sometimes we might shut ourselves off to like, oh, well, that's a feminist group or whatever, which is ridiculous again. But how do we work together on these types of issues? Like, I went to, I want to say it's a Champion Women organization, and they have like a couple petitions on their website. And I was shocked at the level of like, there's, thousands of people signing these, not millions of people signing these. So what would you suggest for dads to be able to do to start to have a voice in this for their kids?
Again, don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask what the policy is. Ask to see it written, which I did, and nobody could show me because they decided not to even have a policy because that was easier and just let it happen. So ask to see the policy, protest say, I protest this on the grounds of Title IX, the true intentions of Title IX, because what's going to happen, Ned, is that it's getting fought out in the courts right now. And eventually it's going to make it to the Supreme Court, and there's going to be a decision to be made, I think, federally. And until then, it's kind of up to the states. And already Alabama, I believe, has decided they're not listening to the Biden Title IX rewrite. They won't enforce it. So the states might still do their own thing for high school. But as far as the world level, World Athletics came out with a policy last year that said, it's not perfect because it says males who have gone through puberty or past age 12, whichever happens sooner, are not allowed to compete in the female category. To me, that is not great because it pushes puberty blockers on a subconscious level. And also it ignores the fact that males are born with more myonuclei.
Explain that to people.
Yeah, so myonuclei are the satellite cells that exist on muscle fibers. And males are born with more of these. And when they do go through puberty, the increase in testosterone, or if someone takes steroids, even a female, and they have an increase in testosterone so great, these myonuclei explode in numbers as well. So yes, puberty does matter because it does exponentiate these myonuclei, but males are still born with more than females, making it easier to regenerate muscle tissue and build stronger, faster muscle tissue. So that's what the myonuclei do. And so, again, it's easier for a male to go from number 72 to number 19 in 1 week than a female. This is the bottom line. It's common sense in biology. It's science. And so the World Athletics policy, in my mind, is not perfect. However, it's a step in the right direction.
Right.
And so it's my understanding that USA Track and Field has adopted this policy, but I'm waiting for some of my contacts to get back to me to confirm that. But supposedly they follow World Athletics, and so they should be following this policy. And the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, also is following. They're saying we're not in the business of deciding. It's up to each sports governing body, and our sports governing body for track and field is World Athletics, WA. And again, this is their policy that it's no longer allowed for males who have gone through puberty to be in the female category. So it's my hope that your daughter does not have this issue at the Junior Olympics this summer because of USA Track and Field standing up for women. And it's definitely not allowed at any world championship meet or any world rankings meet. So if there's an invitational, like the Nike Invitational, it's possible that they will allow it if it's not sanctioned by USA Track and Field or not sanctioned by World Athletics. It depends on if it's a U20. They have the U20 World Championship. That would not be allowed there. So it's my hope that this World Athletics governing world policy is trickling down, maybe slowly, but it is trickling down to our club sports at the very least. The Department of Education is a whole other story. Depends on your state.
Yeah.
So we live in a state that definitely allows this, unfortunately. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that we can't make noise and we can't say it's not okay with us, parents. So I would say to your dads, like don't be afraid to speak up. And I guess my point of this is if you want to file a civil rights complaint, a Title IX violation civil rights complaint, you can. You can file it against the state of Hawaii Department of Education or your state's Department of Education, and you can file it in the region. So mine out of the state of Hawaii was dismissed, but my one in the region, which is out of Seattle, is still active and being investigated. So it's not decided upon yet. And for instance, if it was decided upon right now, it might favor the Biden administration's policy, but if they're waiting, because I think they're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide. But we don't have to wait to decide to speak up for our girls. We know instinctually that this is not okay. So,
and I think that's the thing I want to lean into for dads is like, we are the people. Like, we need to start to have a voice somewhere. And I get it. I'm at states. It didn't matter. My daughter placed great. It didn't impact her. But what about my great grandkids?
But it didn't impact her this year. This individual is also in 10th grade. If they keep up this curve, if they decide, listen, you've seen the individual. If they decide at all to lift weights, because you can tell they haven't been doing anything, as I was told, they haven't even been showing up to practice until April. So where's the hard work ethic there, right?
Yeah.
So if this person decides to actually train, they'll come back next year and win and possibly set a new state record. It's very possible. So and I know it's like, so you're up there thinking, is there something I should do? It's a very uncomfortable position because a lot of people are saying boycott, right? They're saying, oh, maybe they shouldn't even, none of the girls should run. I see these comments all the time on social media. None of the girls should show up to the competition, and then they wouldn't have a competition. But can you imagine telling your daughter, Violet, who's trained so long and hard, don't show up to your race at states where all the colleges are recruiting? Like, of course not. Of course, we're not going to say that. It's that individual who should be not showing up. Did I boycott my race? Yes, I did. I chose not to participate in the 400. And I even thought about, coming on the starting blocks fast and then walking the whole 400. I would do that maybe sometime, but that's my choice. I'm an adult. I've had my my chance in the spotlight. I'm in a different position. But to ask our girls to do this, I don't think that's fair. If they want to protest, if they want to walk around the track, absolutely support them if that's what they want to do. But again, it comes down to talk to them, ask them what do they want to do.
Yeah, and my last number 4 was, dads, it's your job to protect your daughter. So just kind of leaning into what you're saying, Cynthia, is like, hear the voice of your daughter and then support them. But I think sometimes it's easy for us dads to go, this is terrible, this is wrong, we're pulling you out, we're homeschool, like we do have homeschool kids, but we're just totally taking you out, which is not giving her the choice or your kid the choice. Or it's, you're going to boycott this, right? Where's the middle where we're taking the extra step? I know you're busy, but you're filing the civil rights complaint. You're signing the petition. You're taking time to understand and go learn about this.
Emailing all the officials, asking the questions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we're talking about, right now the statistics that I found online are that there's 300,000 transgender students aged 13 to 17. In the United States, which sure is a large number, but not really a large number when you think about how many people live in the United States. But this group is having a major impact, and it could obliterate our daughter's sports 20, 30, 40 years from now.
And not only that, but there was a male athlete identifying as female in Maui this year. But they didn't do well enough to make states or anything, but they were using the girls' bathroom at MILs and making the girls uncomfortable. So I also had to send a complaint to the principal of Maui High about that, because I'm safe sport certified, which means that I'm required to report if any youth athlete reports to me that they felt uncomfortable or in a sexual harassment type of situation. Where did that happen? I don't know. I don't know the details. I was just told they were uncomfortable in that bathroom with that male. That male made them uncomfortable. And whatever that entails is for the administration to investigate. But this is not okay to come into our spaces and make our females uncomfortable, and to make them feel like they don't belong in their own space. So it is a bigger issue. There are other stories that, but at the very least in sports, it's just common sense and biology. This should not happen.
Yeah. Have you done much research or paid attention to the Champion Women organization?
I don't know that organization, no.
So I just in some research today, one of the things that they had a whole article on, that they support transgender to do whatever they want, make the choice that they want outside. And there's lots of places that it could be fair. Like if me and a transgender are trying to get a job somewhere, there's not like a competitive advantage. Just like if me and a woman are trying to get the same job and we're both qualified,
unless there's certain allotments for females, right? Unless it's like a
yes.
A company has to hire a certain amount of females, and then they're taking it's unfair.
So the thing in the article that really stuck out to me is like, oh, this makes so much sense. It's not something that impacts track per se, but that in most sports there's age, right? We categorize by age, we categorize by weight, we categorize by skill level, right? Like you look at jiu-jitsu, exactly, to make it fair. So we have all these sports where we do very clearly say, well, if you're 150 pounds, you're not going to go wrestle a 300-pound person. Like, it doesn't make
Right.
sense, right? And we're
Well,
talking
I
about
asked
body
World
composition.
Athletics, I told World Athletics, if you're allowing this to happen, then I would like to change my registration and register as an 80-year-old. Because maybe sometimes in the winter I feel 80 and I would like to break those records. I literally wrote them this letter. And they said, we understand what you're saying, and we apologize. We cannot uphold this request. However, we are coming out with a new policy we think that you will, be interested in. And then the next week they came out with their policy. But I was saying the same thing. Yeah.
But if it doesn't fall into this kind of like strange issue of whatever they want to say is like really important, it's not going to be heard. But you could say other crazy things, and see, that's rude. I don't want to call out that your choice is crazy. That's your choice. But when it starts to have massive impact on other people, especially on a whole group that have fought so hard for hundreds of years to be able to vote, to be able to do all these things, and now we're going to slowly take that away. And I mean, I haven't done the research to know if there's boys becoming girls girls becoming boys to go compete in sports. Like, no one's talking about that.
No, the only time it was an issue was in high school in Texas in wrestling. A girl was taking male hormones, so she was, like.
But that was so that she could beat other girls, right?
Yeah. Then she ended up because Texas doesn't allow it. She ended up wrestling females on steroids, basically. So
which is you can't do that.
That was unfair. But females don't enter the male categories to compete on purpose. And I have actually an Olympic javelin thrower client who competes against a female that identifies as male, but competes in the female category. But what's really interesting is the new World Athletics policy indicates that if this individual competed for the male category even once, they can't go back to the female category. But they have chosen not to. And they come up clean as far as, I'm guessing, because she said they've been tested as far as steroids and things like this, taking testosterone. So I would think that they would have maybe in the past, but I don't know. So there's still a lot, but you just don't. There's a reason that she's competing with the females. She's, top 10 in the world as a female. She's going to be off the charts as a male. Not even close. It's not even the same weight of javelin. So there's a reason that females don't compete in the male category. They don't win the same amount of prizes and accolades.
Yeah.
And we can't be so naive to think that males and coaches of males wouldn't take advantage of this for money and sponsorships. And this has happened at the elite level. So, millions of dollars come with an Olympic medal.
Right.
And we would be naive to think that someone wouldn't take advantage of this.
Yeah. And it's like, I get it. Small town schools, they don't win and now they're winning. And like, what's the big deal? Whatever. But then you're talking about 50 years from now, 100 years from now, like, now we've lost.
There's no females left.
There's no females left. There's no incentive for me as a female to go and do anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's the end of female sports. Absolutely. It's the nail in the coffin of Title IX. And we're allowing it because we're not speaking up. Not me, because I am speaking up. But I really empower. And again, like, you didn't hear me say anything hateful on this individual.
No, not at all.
This person is this person.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they want. They can dress how they want. Now, I don't really believe in the word transgender. I do believe that they are still males identifying as females. Mm-hmm. They're not becoming females in my eyes, and that would get me canceled in other places. However, it's just biology. So you can dress however you want. It's America. Mm-hmm. However, you cannot take our spaces and our opportunities as females. This is not okay. And, I actually have a friend who's male, who identifies as female, has had surgery, the whole thing, lives his life as a female. He said he would never, ever, he's a runner, now female, he would never compete in the female category because that would not be honoring his sisters. He actually has so much respect for women that he said he would never use what he knows is a biological advantage.
Mm-hmm.
It's, to take this away from a fellow woman. He said he most feels like a woman when he's accepted by other women. And I can tell you that this individual from KL High School is not accepted by the female peers at all. The other one who is not, who's just feminine, that competes as a male, they're like, yes, you go.
Yeah.
Break it up. Because they recognize this is a fair competition.
Right.
But the one that's violating their space, no, they're not stoked on it. These females are not happy about it. So I think for us to all get along, there needs to be another category, and we need to stop lying to ourselves or other people and saying that, yes, if you take a couple hormones, you can go from a male to a female. Like, dress however you want, but let's be honest with ourselves. This is just my opinion. And I think that it's all going to be better for everyone all around if we're not forced to believe in something that we don't believe.
Yeah.
It's being shoved down our throats, and it's not okay.
Yeah. Cynthia, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for stepping up and having a voice. I mean, I would have just sat there this year and not done anything because I feel like I don't know what to say or how to say it. But you posting that, and then honestly, even, I mean, one of my daughter's friends shared it. And then I went to my daughter. I'm like, hey, are you okay if I share this? Are you okay if I meet Cynthia and have her on the podcast? It's still such an interesting, touchy subject. It shouldn't be, though.
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't be. And so that's why I really wanted to have you on, is just to start having conversations. Men start thinking about it, not from the stance of hyper conservative, not from the stance of my political view, but from the stance of human beings.
And this is not the individual's fault. They can be who they want to be.
Yes. Yes.
This is the fault of the adults, and we are the adults. So
this is the fault of the adults. Yes. Yes. Oh, perfectly well said. Any last thoughts from you before we end this? But I would like to continue conversations like this.
No, I just am really grateful that you've had me on, because, again, I'm not. Well, my son told me one of his favorite things about me is that I'm not afraid of confrontation. So, and that is just part of my mentality, part of my, how I live my life. And I just see the detrimental effects that it's having on our females. And I speak up not only for myself and my daughter, but for everyone else's daughter too. So I just really am grateful and humbly thankful for you having me on.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say in conclusion to that is, your son said you're confrontational, but what I think I've appreciated so much of seeing your Instagram stories and even our conversation right now is that you're not standing on a podium of politically. You are 100% full of love for human beings, but also saying, hey, our girls matter. The work they put in matters. Teaching our girls hard work matters. And if we take that away from them, then why are they going to go put hard work into things? And women are already fighting for certain rights still. And for them to have to fight in this arena that should be this safe space for me to be on the softball team, or for me to run track, or for me to be on the wrestling team. These simple things where our girls get to be themselves, to take that from them is just so unfair. And I think dads really need to open their eyes and just pay attention and start to speak up, because we are together running this, this community of our country, of our world. And if no one's going to speak up, then nothing will change.
Exactly. Well said.
All right, Cynthia, thank you. I am excited that you live on the same island now, and that hopefully our paths will cross. But I appreciate all that you're doing. And lastly, if a dad wanted to learn more about this, where would you send him?
Well, my Instagram is @fastover40, the number 40. I post, I've got some stories up there, post up there. I think I have the same YouTube. And then Icons, I'd say, is the most informative. ICONS, Icons. This is the women's group that's doing the most work right now.
Okay.
They kind of coordinate with the other groups that I had mentioned, but they're definitely on it. and they're very active on X or Twitter. They actually just posted a lot about this. It went kind of viral. So this particular situation with this individual here in Hawaii, they posted this week on it. So I would say icons. They have petitions, like they write letters to the NCAA, that sort of thing. And then Alliance for Defending Freedom. Again, these are, it's not a political issue. And even though I have been on political news channels, like Republican news channels, like I stand for the policy. Like it really shouldn't be political.
Right.
So some of these women groups are politically aligned in a way. So you might say, oh, that's, a political group or whatever, but they're the only ones speaking up and doing anything about it. Yeah. Just like, my daughter and I were on Tucker Carlson because he was the only one who gave a platform to this conversation at the time in 2020 or whatever it was. Yeah. So, I just want to explain that again, like, it's just a common sense issue. Trust your instinct. And icons probably would be the best one right now.
Love it. So I'm going to have all those links, dudes, in this. And I tell you, if you listen to this, don't just move on. Go sign a petition, do one form of action, have a conversation with your daughter, do something. And if enough of us start doing something, then we'll be setting our kids up for success in the future. Thanks, Cynthia.
Okay, aloha, mahalo.
Until next time.
What an incredible conversation. I so enjoyed it. It was not my normal interview style, and getting to spend time learning and hearing from Cynthia. The important thing is that we just start to think about this. We don't put our head in the sand. We don't go aggro, that we show up with love for human beings, but we also show up to love, serve, and protect those that have been placed in our care, our daughters. Now, what stuck out to me was the reality that this doesn't have to be this political argument, this pointing of fingers, this he said, she said. We can't use our kids as pawns in these bigger conversations. Shame on us. Shame on us, fathers, for allowing that to happen. We must be in the game and not find ourselves too busy to do something. If it matters to us, if it matters to your daughter, you must engage. Find ways to lovingly engage, but especially to give your daughter a voice, and first and foremost, that you would be an ear for how your daughter feels about the things that are happening in her life. All right, my friends, if you find these podcasts helpful to your own life, bring up things to help you step into the fullness of your identity as a father, please write a review, help spread the word that fatherhood matters. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to the Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That is who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned. Shout together. Let's rebel against a view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next week.